You know the feeling of the words you swallowed, the heavy silence in a room when you should have spoken up but chose to stay quiet. There is a ghost in those moments, an unseen weight pressing against your chest. Society gives you a simple instruction for dealing with this. Clip your claws. We are conditioned to believe that being a good person requires you to be entirely harmless. You are praised for pruning your rough edges and smiling at a world that often wants to devour you. To maintain this illusion, you build what Carl Jung called the persona. This diagram represents that psychological mask, a glowing, perfect outer shell assembled piece by piece. Notice how it traps a chaotic, kinetic dark mass underneath. You wear this heavy iron mechanism to convince your neighbors and yourself that you are made entirely of light. But this forced compliance does not make you a saint. It makes you a victim. By locking away half of your nature, you cut yourself off from your own potential, leaving yourself entirely exposed to the dangers of the world. Friedrich Nietzsche looked closely at the highly polite, civilized society of the late 19th century and saw a problem. He identified a tragic archetype he called the last man. These were individuals who willingly traded their souls for absolute comfort and surrendered their internal fire in exchange for safety. Look at this structural model of human capacity. A flat baseline of comfort suddenly splits. To reach the sharp, towering peaks of creative genius, there must be a geometric equivalent in the other direction. The line plunges into a deep underground valley. You cannot reach the heights of your ability without possessing a corresponding depth of destructive potential. When you optimize your entire existence to avoid risk, you guarantee your own weakness. A life completely devoid of danger simply turns you into easy prey. Psychologist Carl Jung named this hidden valley of human nature. He called it the shadow. This is the psychological reservoir for everything you have rejected about yourself. It holds your anger, your sexuality, your aggression, and your hunger for power. There is a strict rule to this psychological mechanism. Ignoring these traits does not erase them. Because you refuse to acknowledge them, they simply relocate beneath the surface. Here we see a cross-section of a psychological foundation. Watch these abstract dark shapes trapped below the surface. Denied oxygen, they rot and expand. They mutate into quiet resentment, deep neurosis, and depression, causing escalating stress fractures in the clean, polite surface above. Pushing away your dark side does not eliminate the threat of danger. It simply internalizes it. The energy you refuse to wield becomes a psychological weapon that slowly tears you apart from the inside out. Which leads us to an uncomfortable truth about peace. A person lacking the physical and psychological capacity to be dangerous cannot claim to be peaceful. They are simply submissive. True virtue looks like a monster making a choice. It is the deliberate act of sliding a deadly weapon into its scabbard, keeping a firm grip on the hilt, and deciding not to strike. There is a massive distinction between actively withholding your power and the raw impotence of someone who never had a sword to begin with. Morality requires options. If you lack the capacity for destruction, your goodness is not a virtue. It is merely forced compliance. The internal alchemy of personal transformation requires you to walk into the dark room of your mind with a candle. You have to look directly at your own inherent capacity for cruelty. You must acknowledge that, placed under the right conditions, you possess the exact same human hardware responsible for the atrocities history has recorded. Viktor Frankl survived the unimaginable darkness of the camps and walked away with a profound realization. Human survival is sustained by meaning, and meaning requires heavy psychological weight. A person without a fully integrated shadow is hollow. Lacking the dense mass that comes from owning their darkness, they will simply blow away in the first violent gust of tragedy. The purpose of this integration is intensely practical. When you stop hiding from these repressed emotions, you can harvest their raw energy. By owning your darkness, it stops owning you. Watch this on a practical level. This jagged red line represents raw anger. Through integration, that energy is reshaped, flattening into a solid boundary. This solid wall shifts into load-bearing pillars, channeling raw aggression into the drive to build a business or protect your family. You are a predator who has been trained to behave like a sheep. You have been told the sheep is safe. But the sheep is never truly safe. The sheep is lunch. Turn around and face the ghost. Stop running from your capacity for harm and start integrating your dark side. You will finally gain the unshakable psychological mass required to withstand the world. You stop being vulnerable prey and you step into the role of a whole integrated human being, the predator who makes the conscious choice to be the shepherd.